to our second session and the last session of questions and answers. And we'd like to welcome back to the stage our speakers from sessions 3 and 4. So if we may have on stage Mr. Peter Hayes, Daniel Assisi, Julio Padovan, Anisio Resem, and Heather Bollech-Fonseca. Let's give them a warm welcome again to our moderator, Leonardo Vieira.
You guys ready? Okay. I expect both answers, so it's okay. Welcome back again for the second session of the Q&A, and it's truly a pleasure to be here and be asking these questions, be the voice of these questions that were asked, amazing questions, as we mentioned earlier. And the first question goes to Peter Hayes. You said that messages should not only be examined by one person, but by a group of people. What should be done if not everyone has the same feeling or perception towards the messages?
The short answer is it depends on why people disagree. I have a very long background in theater. I am a playwright. I also worked as director of new play development and literary manager in theater for many years. That means that I did several readings and worked on new plays, and we would always have discussions of the plays afterwards. Well, as you might imagine, you would get different perspectives on what play is, and people would sometimes agree or disagree. I think that the same thing happens in trying to evaluate a communication. It's okay. It just depends, again, on what people disagree about. Not every communication is going to be profound or interesting to all people equally. Sometimes one communication may be very moving to someone, and another person goes, so what? If there are concerns about factual content, stuff like that, all those things can be looked up and verified. At the end of the day, there's a premise to Spiritism, which again stays with me a lot, which is question everything. Nothing is sacred. If you have problems agreeing with something, it's okay to have a nice open discussion about it as long as the discussion is respectful. And the goal is to try to really explore the idea or the communication as much as possible and see what the validity is and maybe what the faults are.
Thank you. Next question, Daniel Assisi. We do acknowledge free will and understanding that some people charge for what they receive through mediumship. What are the implications of doing so for the medium and for the person receiving the message or work?
I'm thinking. How to synthesize that. I think the important piece to start with is to continue the dialogue around the fact that it's always okay to have divergent opinions. Because we still find ourselves in a spot, psychologically speaking, I feel, in which we think that there is only one right answer. And it's generally ours, right? It's generally either my way or the highway. But what we need to remember, remind ourselves, and paraphrasing here a little bit, is that we can come together on the idea that there are some core processes and thinking things that we can accommodate. So the consequences for somebody who, and all that to say, let me kind of summarize my long philosophical diatribe, which is, hey, if you like ice cream, let's go eat ice cream, right? I might like chocolate, you might like vanilla, but we can all agree that ice cream is awesome, right? So it's only natural that we may have different perspectives and positions on this. And one of them that we find quite often is this dialogue of whether paid mediumship is right or wrong.
It is neither. It just is. What we do with it is our doing. So it's really hard to say this one is right or that one is wrong because we don't know how it's actually being practiced. So we can't really come down with an edict and say, this is how you should do it, right? And we also learned through Spiritism that it's not for us to determine. What we do is just provide information. So Spiritism is not being dogmatic at all and being open to research and evaluation and constant progress, gathers the information with which then we individuals make our own decisions. However, what we have come across so far in our literature and in our research over this last 150 plus years is that there is a vested interest of our part to be intentionally disinterested in acquiring physical gains from mediumship. And so that's why we say, hey, it's okay to do it. Of course, we respect everybody's free will, but we are concerned that if we are doing paid mediumship, we might expose ourselves to difficult conditions that may lead us down a path that may not be healthy for the medium practicing that. And so, all to make a long story short, what I'm trying to say is, it's not for us to judge how people practice mediumship. And it's not that because you are a paid medium, you're a bad person or evil person or whatever it is. That's not absolutely the case. Not at all. What we are concerned about is what is the best way we feel that will lead us to the moral evolution that we want to achieve. And while we're in this process, we are also very mindful of not putting yourself in circumstances that may be detrimental to our own development. And we find that exposing material things to spiritual things leads us into those detrimental positions sometimes. What we don't want to do is to fall back into errors that we perhaps made in past lives where we constructed a whole commerce of faith. And we don't want to disenfranchise people. We want to make sure that everybody has access to it. So our focus really is on free mediumship, but it does not mean that we condemn paid mediumship at all. I want to be very clear about this because we don't condemn anything. Spiritism does not condemn anything. Spiritism is not dogmatic, does not impose, does not force. It simply brings the set of information that we have today so that each one can make their own decision. What do you guys think? Anybody want to add something else?
Thank you, Daniel. Julio Padovan. Simply put, what is real?
Everything is real. The problem is we have a tendency to divide what we know from what we don't know, and the separation is what we call real, and then unreal, or something we just don't understand. Our idea of reality is still something like a cereal box. We want to go to the supermarket shelf and just pick one. And we have to change this. We have to see that reality is what we make. There is no such a thing as a reality that is made for us, or that's made by someone that we can go there and choose this one, that one, or have this one or that one imposed upon us. We are the ones creating our reality, and if we're creating that reality, then everything that we interact with and all our manifestations is what we call real.
Thank you. Anisio. If spiritual concepts are natural, or in other words, part of nature, how come it is still not commonly and widely known by more people?
That's our job. That's exactly what we're doing here, and that's I think it's one of the frustrating things about evolution. We are evolving, right? So it's amazing, and I know we always, if you want to understand, I mean, one of the ways to really understand this is to look back in time and have this perspective of how things evolved in other areas, right? That's why we drew the parallel to natural law, physics. Think about how things have changed. Think about how much we have known. Even the laws of mechanics that Newton talked about now have evolved with Einstein and other things. So we are in a constant progress. And I know sometimes we lose that perspective because in our own life, in our own the things that happen around us, sometimes we lose this perspective that things are changing, right? And I'm going to give you something just, 2,000 years ago, a little bit less than that. Christians were dying in the circus or the show. It was entertaining. It was just Saturday TV. I don't know. It was just, people would go to that place for entertainment. And actually, Christians, the only thing they were doing is they just claimed, because there's no cross or no sign, they just claimed to be Christians and follow this teachings of love and compassion, and it would be killed. The only thing they need to do to get out of that was, I'm not a Christian. I'm just walking out of here. And we're talking about Jesus today and all the teachings because of those people. So remember, we are not in a static world. For any means of imagination, all hopes that things were fixed, even matter now, it's just vibration in things. We are in a dynamic universe. And let's not try to stuck our lives as well, because we're going to be forced out of it. We are constantly evolving, constantly moving forward. And things will become more available and we'll become more aware as we evolve. So spirituality, this question, if we look back, I think of course, if you could look into 200 years from now or 100 years from now and look back at this and say, how come people didn't know about spirituality? How come people didn't know about reincarnation? It's like, how come people didn't know about cell phones? Can you imagine that people had no cell phones 100 years ago? It's unimaginable, but they lived without it. So it's going to be the same, because we are being taken care of. There's a loving creator. Universe is moving into a more loving direction. So we just don't know it yet. The moment we understand that, it's the moment where our lives transform.
Thank you. Next question to Heather. What did you refer to when you said that the history of modern spiritualism is rich with fascinating details?
That was a reflection of my own as I was actually preparing for this topic, because I was assigned the topic Spiritualism in America, and I'll be the first to admit that I am not the expert on the history of spiritualism or even the spiritualist movement today. I'm sure there are plenty of others in this room who know more than myself. However, I really enjoyed the research that I did as I started looking into first the articles from Kardec and the propositions that he made. They led me to look for further details, and then one thing led to another, and I encountered so many things. We talked about the physical phenomena, but in and of themselves, the relations, the narrations of those experiences, and the different, not so much arguments, but the discussions that were going on between different spiritualists and their opposing views as they explored the ideas, all the things that came out in the spiritualist journals. Even, like I said, what I came across in terms of the spiritualists, the advocates for the abolition of slavery, and the proponents of the women's rights movement. Robert Blakely had mentioned earlier that he lived in upstate New York and hadn't heard of Lilydale till he moved to Florida, and the same thing was my case, not only with Lilydale, but also even, for the most part, spiritualism. I didn't really learn about spiritualism until I started studying Spiritism, and in my first classes on Spiritism, learning about the precursors and the forerunners to Spiritism, which, was the spiritualist movement, the Fox sisters and Sweetenberg, Andrew Jackson Davis, and so many others. But I had such a limited idea of spiritualism, and through the studies that I did, I found that, wow, all of us, even as spiritualists, there's so much to learn, and I really encourage you to look into it. Even the Spiritist Review, that's part of, I would say, the history of spiritualism, because Spiritism is spiritualist in essence. And I'm so excited about the new publication that's come out in English, because I can't wait to read it myself. There's so much to learn. It's really fascinating.
Thank you. And that leads me to an excuse I would like to put on myself, that many of you will be looking at Leo and saying, where are my questions, right? There are many questions. And again, we thank you all for the help, the ideas that are brought. Unfortunately, because of time, we have to cut short. But I'll put that on you guys. If there are one or a couple of things that you can say because of time, for those questions were not answered, what can we do to have them answered? Don't give your phone numbers, don't give your emails. We're not asking for that.
Well, for me personally, those of you who may not know, I have a website. It's called explorespiritism.com. If you go there, you can find all about Spiritism, or you can share it with others, and the contact email on there, it goes directly to me. It's editor@explorespiritism.com. So for me personally, you're welcome to contact me there.
Thank you. Danny.
I think we would be remiss to say that, you know, one great way to get your questions answered and continue the conversations is to go to the many different Spiritist groups that we find throughout the United States. It's great to be here and have the conversation started in events like this, and spark our curiosity, or perhaps meet new friends and think about new things. But what we really want to do in the spirit of the codification of Spiritism in general is to constantly continue those conversations and refine those conversations. And for that, you need a group of people with which to converse. And you can always find those groups of people in your local Spiritist groups. So please go and ask questions, get involved, get into the study groups, be pesky about it. Say, why? But I don't agree with this. Tell me why. And of course, anybody else here, I think you feel the same. If you want to talk to somebody, just go up to them and talk to them. Maybe they will give you their phone number. Maybe they will give you their email. Maybe they won't, but they will talk to you, or they should. So don't forget that you have, look around, you have great resources on the web, personally, and most of all, on your local Spiritist group where you can continue the conversation.
I'm just going to say, I think this is a fantastic opportunity for us to make an impact, right? To make it, to just work and manifest this beautiful transformation. And it's just a chance, it's an opportunity. We don't need to. You don't need to be here today. None of us could be doing this. We have choices, I know, but it's a great opportunity we've given to actually make part of the spiritual growth and transform ourselves. Enough. Kardec has actually, in Spiritual Review in 1958, September, there's an article about the propagation of Spiritism. And I want to review for this Congress, actually. The thing that stuck to me was the very last sentence of the article, right? Where he simply says something like this: those that are the most difficult or most strongest attackers to the Spiritism today will be those that will defend it and propagate it the most in the future. And for some reason I felt like, ooh, here I am. Let's do something.
We need to constantly debate, challenge, discuss things. Always. We have to remember this process of intellectualization, not technology, intellectualization about Spiritism, what it represents, what it brings to our lives, is very important. Love is the cornerstone of our doctrine. And I'll be the last person here to say anything against it. Universal love, I mean. But we have to understand two things. Love, this absolute love that we don't understand yet, manifests as charity. But both of them, without the intellectualization, very quickly degrade. Love becomes adoration, and charity goes into self-promotion. So we have this need, this imperative to continue to debate, discuss everything we can, because it's only through these discussions, the debate, that we are going to further our progress.
Well, I agree with everything everybody just said, so. It is, excuse me. I would just reiterate what I think has already been touched on, which is that if you have questions, absolutely go to a Spiritist center and study in a group, because the best way to study Spiritism is with other people. Yes, you can read it on your own. That's nice. It's certainly is a good way to try to get started or reinforce something you may have talked about. But you should absolutely study with other people, because then you can really discuss ideas freely. One of the things that makes Spiritism such a pleasure, I think, is that we can discuss ideas. A lot of times you go to church, synagogue, what have you, and those can be wonderful experiences, but is there necessarily a lot of open discussion going on? Depends. But Spiritism, really almost the foundation of it is based upon study and constant study, because this material takes a very, very long time to understand. And even if you think you understand certain concepts of Spiritism, at one point in your life, it's going to read to you differently later on in life.
Thank you so much for all your contribution for this part of the work as well. With that, we conclude the second part, the second Q&A. Thank you.